Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Narayanam Namaskritya Naram Chaiva Narottamam Devim Saraswatim Vyasam Tato Jayamudire. Nashtaprayeshu Abhadreshu Nityam Bhagavata Sevaya Bhagavate Uttamashloke Bhakti Bhavati Naishtiki. Avagnanatimirandasya Gnananjana Shalakaya Chakshurunmilitam Mena Tasmai Shri Guruve Namaha. Namo Vishnupadaya Krishna Preshthaya Bhutale Srimate Bhaktivedanta Swaminiti Namane. Namaste Saraswate Deve Gauravani Pracharini Nirvishesha Shunyavadi Paschatya Deshatarine. Jai Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhara Shivasadi Gaura Bhakta Vrinda. Hare Krishna 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 Hare Hare. Hare Rama 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 Hare Hare. Okay, we are continuing Canto 6, Chapter 12, verse 18. Shishuko Vacha Indra Vrtavachaha Shutva Gata Alikam Apujayat Grihita Vajraha Prahasan Tam Aha Gata Vismayaha. So Indra Vrtavachaha Vrata, the words of Vrtrasura Shutva being heard, Gata Alikam, without duplicity, Apujayat worshipped him. So he Grihita Vajra, took up his thunderbolt, and then without duplicity, Prahasan Tam Aha Gata Vismaya. So he spoke to him. Hearing the straightforward, instructive words of Vrtrasura, King Indra praised him and again took the thunderbolt in his hand. Without bewilderment or duplicity, he then smiled and spoke to Vrtrasura as follows. So Indra was astonished to hear the instructions of Vrtrasura, who was supposed to be a demon. He was struck with wonder that a demon could speak so intelligently. Then he remembered great devotees like Prahlada Bali, who had been born in the families of demons. Thus he came to his senses. So he spoke smilingly to Vrtrasura. Indra Vacha. Aho Danava Siddhosi Yasya Te Matir Idrishi Bhakta Sarvatmanatmanam Surudam Jagadishwaram. O great demon, I see by your discrimination and endurance, Matihi, in devotional service, despite your dangerous position, that you are a perfect devotee of the Supreme Lord, the Super Soul and friend of everyone. Surudam Jagatishwaram. You are a Bhaktaha. Aho Danava Siddha Asi. Yasyate Matihi. Your consciousness is fixed in the Supreme. You are such a perfect devotee. Yam labdva chaparam labham manyate nadikam tataha yasmin sthito na dukkhena gurunapi vichalyate. Established in Krishna consciousness, one never departs from the truth, and upon gaining this, he thinks that there is no greater gain. Being established in such a position, one is never shaken even in the midst of the greatest difficulty. Established in Yam Labdva, being situated in Krishna consciousness. One never departs from the truth. And he is never shaken in that. And if there is gain, he is not distracted by that. If he is having problem, even that doesn't affect him. An unalloyed devotee is never disturbed by any kind of trying circumstance. So we have to note this. Trying circumstances can be very trying, testing us. But unalloyed devotee is never disturbed. Indra was surprised to see that Vrtrasura, undisturbed, was fixed in devotional service. For such a mentality is impossible for a demon. However, with the grace of Supreme Lord, anyone can become an exalted devotee. Priyo Vaishyastata Shudrastepi Anti Param Gatim. And an unalloyed devotee should return home back to Godhead. So just now I was reading first canto, I shared this one. A neophyte devotee must faithfully serve the pure devotee. and he should be very much obedient and strictly follow the instructions. These are the signs of a devotee who is determined to achieve success even in the existing duration of life. So faithfully serve pure devotee, be obedient, strictly follow his instructions. These are the three qualities. Then such an unalloyed devotee should return home, back to Godhead, even in this duration of life. Prabhupada is saying, even in existing duration of life. Bhavanatashrin mayam vai vaishnavim janamohinim yad vihayasuram bhavam purushatam gataha. You have surmounted the illusory energy of Lord Vishnu. Because of this liberation, you have given up the demoniac mentality and attained the position of an exalted devotee. Lord Vishnu is Mahapurusha, therefore one who becomes a Vaishnava attains the position of Paurushya. This position was attained by Parikshit Maharaj. It is said in the Padma Purana that distinction between a demigod and a demon is that a demigod is a devotee of the Lord Vishnu. Vishnu Bhakta Smruto Daiva Asura Tad Viparyayaha. Opposite. Demon is just the opposite. Vishnu Bhakta Smruto Daiva Asura Tad Viparyayaha. Vrtrasura was considered a demon, but actually was more than qualified as a devotee or Mahapaurushya. If one somehow becomes a devotee of the Lord, whatever his position, he can be brought to the position of a perfect person. If one somehow becomes a devotee of the Lord, so this somehow becomes, again, first canto, Prabhupada is saying, Krishna wants the message of Bhagavad Gita to be preached among his devotees. It may not be so done amongst those who have no credit of austerities, charity, and education. It may not be so done, meaning that even if we distribute the message of Bhagavad Gita amongst those who have no credit of austerities, charity, education, meaning unqualified, they won't understand or they will just not accept it. So the attempt must go on to convert unwilling men to become his devotees. So first we have to convert unwilling men. So men are unwilling. And that they're unwilling, they don't want to hear Bhagavad Gita. So Prabhupada is saying that these are unwilling men. Now first attempt has to be done to convert unwilling men to become devotee. How? Not by giving Bhagavad Gita. Lord Chaitanya has taught us a very simple method in this connection. He has taught the lesson of preaching the transcendental message through singing, dancing, and refreshment, meaning prasadam. So unwilling men have to be first converted into devotees by Lord Chaitanya's method of singing, dancing, and prasadam. Then they will become purified and will be able to accept the message of Bhagavad Gita. That is that somehow make one a devotee. Then he will accept Bhagavad Gita, then he'll accept Bhagavatam, then he can be brought to the position of a perfect person. He cannot come. He can be brought by the unalloyed, pure devotee, is bona fide spiritual master. This is possible if an unalloyed devotee tries to serve the Lord by delivering him in this way. So devotee has to serve the Lord by delivering the fallen soul. Therefore, Shukadeva Goswami says, Kirata Hunandra Pulinda Pulkashabhira Shumbhaya Vanakasha Khasadaya Yene Chapapa Yadapashayashrayaha Yudyanti Tasmai Prabhu Vishnave Namaha. Papa Yadapashayashrayaha. All these Kiratas, Hunas, Andhras, Pulindas, Pulkashas, Abhira, Shumba, Yavana, and members of Khasa, and even others addicted to sinful acts can be purified by taking shelter of the devotees of the Lord. For he is the supreme power. So here the Lord's power is explained in terms of the power of his devotees, or is glorified in terms of the power of his devotees. He is not saying that all these fallen race should come to the Lord. No, he is saying they should be purified by taking shelter of the devotees of the Lord. Anyone can be purified if he takes shelter of a pure devotee. Shelter means complete surrender, just no independence, following the instructions of the Devotee whose shelter we have taken, and molds his character according to the pure devotee's direction. So again, see, please note, this is initiation. Take shelter of a pure devotee and mold character according to pure devotee's direction. Not that, we just remain as however we want. Thus, even if one is a Kirata, Andhra, Pulinda, or whatever, he can be purified and elevated to the position of Mahapaurusha. Very powerful. Khalvidam mahadaschharyam yad raja prakrtestava vasudeve bhagavati satvatmani dridhamati. O Vrtrasura, demons are generally conducted by the modes of passion. Therefore, what a great wonder it is that although you are a demon, you have adopted the mentality of a devotee and have fixed your mind on the Supreme Person of Godhead Vasudeva, who was always situated in pureness. King Indra wondered how Vrtrasura could have been elevated to the position of an exalted devotee. As for Prahlad Maharaj, he was initiated by Narada Muni, and therefore it was possible for him to become a great devotee. Although he was born in a family of demons. For Vrtrasura, however, Indra could not detect such causes. Therefore, he was struck with wonder that Vrtrasura was such an exalted devotee that he could fix his mind without deviation upon the lotus feet of the Lord. So Indra is thinking, how was it possible? It's a great wonder because I cannot find any cause like in the case of Prahlad Maharaj. Yasya bhaktir bhagavati harau nishreyaseshware vikridatomratam bodau kim kshudraihi khatakodakaihi. Person fixed in devotion service of the Lord Hari, the Lord of the highest auspiciousness, swims in the ocean of nectar. Amrita Ambodhau. Vikriditaha. He is going to be simply swimming in the Amrita Ambodhi, the ocean of nectar. For him, what is the use of water in small ditches? He is like swimming in the ocean of nectar. What is the use of water in some small ditches? For whom person fixed in devotional service of the Lord. Vrtrasura formally prayed, na Nakaprushtam, na cha parameshtyam, na sarvabhaumam, na rasadhipatyam. I do not want the facilities for happiness on Brahmaloka, Swargaloka, or even Dhruvaloka, not to speak on this earth or lower planets. I simply want to return home back to Godhead. This is the determination of a pure devotee. He is never attracted to any exalted position within this material world. He simply wants to associate with the Supreme Lord, like the inhabitants of Vrindavana, Srimati Radharani, the gopis, Krishna's father, mother, Krishna's friends, servants. He wants to associate with Krishna's atmosphere of Vrindavana's beauty. These are the highest ambitions of a devotee of Krishna. Devotees of Lord Vishnu may aspire for a position in Vaikuntha Loka, but a devotee of Krishna never aspires even for the facilities of Vaikuntha. He wants to return to Goloka Vrindavan and associate with Lord Krishna in his eternal pastimes. So we should be, there is something called Vaikuntha Darshana. No, we should have Goloka Darshana. There's something called Vaikuntha Van. We should have Goloka Van. We should first let people know that Krishna's abode is Goloka. It's above Vaikuntha. Any material happiness is like the water in a ditch. The spiritual happiness eternally enjoyed in the spiritual world is like an ocean of nectar in which a devotee wants to swim. So devotee wants this, like we were discussing, He wants to associate with Krishna, with all like the inhabitants of Vrindavan. He wants to associate with Krishna's atmosphere of Vrindavana's beauty. These are the highest ambitions of a devotee of Krishna. And yeah, we don't aspire for a position in Vaikuntha Loka. Okay, anybody wants to say answer? Why we don't aspire for a position in Vaikuntha Loka? Or why Goloka is considered more exalted than Vaikuntha? Yeah.
Hare Krishna, Prabhu. In Vaikunta, the mood is like an Aishwarya Bhav and awe and reverence. There is no exchange of races, like, parental, friendly, and then, all these 5 kinds of relationships.
Okay. Okay. Anybody else?
Pranam Prabhuji. Prabhuji, just in continuation to this, like Lord relishes pure love more than the awe and reverence of his devotees.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah. Yeah. So Krishna says that he is not attracted by this Aishwarya. So if you want to, in Chaitanya Charitamrita, Krishna Das Kaviraj Goswami says, Shitila, he says, Prema Huila Shitila. Shitila means like mellowed down or watered down. So that devotion is which is filled with awe and reverence doesn't attract Krishna. So if we are, and of course Krishna, so Krishna is not there in Vaikuntha. Krishna is in Goloka. So if you want Krishna, then we go to Goloka. If you want awe and reverence, then we go to Vaikuntha. Shishukavacha. Iti bruvanav अन्योन्यम धर्म जिज्ञासया नृप युधाते महावीर्याव इंद्र वृत्रौ युधाम पति. Sri Sukadeva Goswami said Vrtrasura and King Indra spoke about devotional service even on the battlefield, and then as a matter of duty they again began fighting. Both of them were great fighters and were equally powerful. Avidya parigham Vrutraha Karshnayasam Arindamaha Indraya Prahinod Ghoram Vamahastena Marisha. No, Parikshit Maharaj, Vrtrasura was completely able to subdue his enemy, took his iron club, whirled it around, aimed it at Indra, and then threw it at him with his left hand. Satu Vrutrasya Parigham Karam cha Karabhopamam Chicheda Yugapad Devo Vajrena Shataparvana, which is a thunderbolt named Shataparvan. Oh, okay. The thunderbolt is called Shataparvan. Indra simultaneously cut to pieces Vrtrasura's club and his remaining hand. Dorbhyam Utkrutta Mulabhyam Babhau Raktasravoshuraha Chinna Paksho Yatha Gotraha Khad Brashto Vajrinaya Hataha. Vrtrasura, bleeding profusely, his 2 arms cut off at their roots, looked very beautiful, like a flying mountain, whose wings have been cut to pieces by Indra. It appears from the statement that sometimes there are flying mountains. Yes, Ramayana says this, and that their wings are cut by the thunderbolt of Indra. Vrtrasura's huge body resembled such a mountain. Mahaprano, Mahaviryo, Mahasarpa Ivadvipam Kritvadharam Hanum Pumau Daityo Divyuttaram Hanum Nabho Gambhira Vaktarena Leli Holbana Jivvaya Damstrabhi Kala Kalpabhir Grasan Iva Jagat Trayam Atimatra Mahakaya Akshipams Tarasa Girin Girirat Pada Chariva Padbhyam Nirjarayam Mahim Jagrasa Samasadya Vajrinam Sahavahanam. Vrtrasura was very powerful in physical strength and influence. He placed his lower jaw on the ground and his upper jaw in the sky. His mouth became very deep like the sky itself, and his tongue resembled a large serpent. With his fearful, death-like teeth, he seemed to be trying to devour the entire universe. Thus, assuming a gigantic body, the great demon Vrtrasura shook even the mountains and began crushing the surface of the earth with his legs. As if he were the Himalayas walking about, he came before Indra and swallowed him and Airavata, his carrier, just as a big python might swallow an elephant. Vritragrastam tamalokya saprajapatayah suraha ha kashtam iti nirvinnash chukrushuhu Samaharshayaha. When the demigods, along with Brahma, other Prajapatis, and other great saintly persons saw that Indra had been swallowed by the demon, they became very morose. Alas, they lamented, what a calamity, what a calamity. Nigrinopi asurendrena na mamarodaram gataha mahapurusha sannadho yogamaya balena cha. The protective armor of Narayana, which Indra possessed, was identical with Narayana himself. Protected by that armor and by his own mystic power, Indra, although swallowed by Vrtrasura, did not die within the demon's belly. Hitva vajrena tat kukshim nishkramya balabhid vibhu uchchakarta shira shatror girishangam ivaujasa. With his thunderbolt, Indra was also extremely powerful, pierced through Vrtrasura's abdomen and came out. Indra, the killer of demon Bala, then immediately cut off Vrtrasura's head, which was as high as the peak of a mountain. Vajrastu tat kandharam ashuvegaha krintan samantat parivartamanaha nyapatayat tavad ahar ganena yo jyotisham ayane vartrahatye. All the thunderbolt revolved around Vrtrasura's neck with great speed, separating his head from his body. Took one complete year, 360 days, the time in which the sun, moon, and other luminaries complete a northern and southern journey. Then, at the suitable time for Vrtrasura to be killed, his head fell to the ground. So, please note, a killing process got initiated 1 year back, but he died 1 year later. At the suitable time, the time he had to give up his body, which was determined, pre-decided. तदा च खे दुन्दुभयो विनेदुर्गन्धर्वसिद्धा समहर्षि संगाः वार्त्रघ्नलिङ्गैस्तम् अभिष्टुवाना मन्त्रैर्मुदा कुसुमैरभ्यवर्षन्. And Vrtrasura was killed. The Gandharvas and Siddhas in the heavenly planets beat kettle drums in jubilation. With Vedic hymns, they celebrated the prowess of Indra, the killer of Vrtrasura, praising Indra and showering flowers upon him with great pleasure. Vritrasya dehan nishkrantam atmajyotirarindama pashyatam sarvadevanam alokham samapadyata. O King Parikshit, subduer of enemies, the living spark then came forth from Vritrasura's body and returned home back to Godhead. It didn't say it merged into Krishna, like in the case of demons. And returned home back to Godhead. While all the demigods looked on, he entered the transcendental world to become an associate of Lord Sankarshana. Srila Vishwanatha Chakravarti Thakur explains that Indra, not Vrtrasura, was actually killed. He says that when Vrtrasura swallowed King Indra and his carrier, the elephant, he thought, now I have killed Indra and therefore there is no more need of fighting. Now let me return home back to Godhead. Thus he stopped all his bodily activities and became situated in trance. This is what happened. Taking advantage of the silence of Vrtrasura's body, Indra pierced the demon's abdomen, and because of Vrtrasura's trance, Indra was able to come out. Otherwise, Vrtrasura would have prevented him. Now, Vrtrasura was in Yoga Samadhi, and therefore, although King Indra wanted to cut his throat, the demon's neck was so stiff that Indra's thunderbolt took 360 days to cut it to pieces. Actually, it was the body left by Vrtrasura that was cut to pieces by Indra. Vrtrasura himself was not killed. In his original consciousness, Vrtrasura returned home back to Godhead to become an associate of Lord Sankarshana. Here, the word Alokam means the transcendental world, Vaikuntha Loka, where Sankarshana eternally resides. So, Vrtrasura went to Vaikuntha because he was a worshipper of Sankarshana. So, Srila Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur gives this insight that actually because he was in Yoga Siddhi, he was in Yoga Samadhi, he was in Samadhi, he was in trance. So, only Indra could actually pierce the demon's abdomen with his thunderbolt. Otherwise, he wouldn't have been able to kill Vrtrasura. He was such a formidable warrior. So he just cut his throat, but because his neck was so stiff because of that Yoga Samadhi, it took 360 days to cut it to pieces. Okay, so with this we end the episode of Vrtrasura. Any questions, comments? No questions, comments. Okay. So, chapter 12 is over. We'll just read the summary of this. Indra, afflicted by sinful reaction. This chapter describes Indra's fear at having killed a Brahmana, Vrtrasura. It also describes how he fled and was saved by the grace of Lord Vishnu. When all the demigods requested Indra to kill Vrtrasura, he refused because Vrtrasura was a Brahmana. The demigods, however, encouraged Indra not to fear killing him because Indra was protected by Narayana Kavacha. Even by a glimpse of the chanting of Narayana's name, one becomes free from all sinful reactions of killing a woman, a cow, or a Brahmana. The demigods advised Indra to perform an Ashwamedha sacrifice by which Narayana would be pleased, for the performer of such a sacrifice is not implicated in sinful reactions even if he kills the entire universe. So this was Nama Parada. Advised Indra to perform an Ashwamedha sacrifice by which Narayana would be pleased, for the performer of such a sacrifice is not implicated in sinful reactions if he kills them. So when you are taking the name of Narayana and wanting to be protected from sinful reactions, it is Nama Parada. So I think this is explained by Prabhupada. Following this instruction from the demigods, King Indra fought Vrtrasura, but when Vrtrasura was killed, everyone was satisfied but King Indra, who knew Vrtrasura's position. This is the nature of a great personality. Even if a great personality acquires some opulence, he is always ashamed and regretful if he acquires it illegally. Indra could understand that he was certainly entangled by the sinful reactions for killing a Brahmana. Indeed, he could see sinful reaction personified following him, and thus he fled here and there in fear, thinking of how to rid himself of his sins. He went to Manasa Sarovara, and there, under the protection of goddess of fortune, he meditated for 1000 years. During this time, Nahusha reigned over the planetary heavenly planets as the representative of Indra. Unfortunately, however, he was attracted by the beauty of Indra's wife Sachi Devi, and because of his sinful desire, he had to accept the body of a serpent in his next life. So Nahusha fell down because Indra was there in the Manasa Sarovara doing meditation. Indra later performed a great sacrifice with the help of exalted Brahmanas and saints. In this way, he was released from the reactions of his sinful killing of a Brahmana. So Shukadeva Goswami says, when all the great sages and demigods were disturbed by the extraordinary power of Vrtrasura, they had assembled to ask Indra to kill him. Indra, however, being afraid of killing a Brahmana, declined the request. So Indra replied, when I killed Vishwarupa, I received extensive sinful reactions. Vishwarupa was just Brahmana, but Vrtrasura is a devotee. So he says, okay, I received extensive sinful reactions, but I was favored by the woman, land, trees, and water, and therefore I was able to divide the sin among them. But now, if I kill Vrtrasura, another Brahmana, how shall I free myself from the sinful reactions? Hearing this, the great sages replied, O King of Heaven, all good fortune unto you. Do not fear, we shall perform an Ashwamedha sacrifice to release you from any sin you may accrue by killing the Brahmana. So here, maybe the next verse. The rishis continued, O King Indra, by performing an Ashwamedha sacrifice, thereby pleasing the Supreme Lord, the Supreme Controller, one can be relieved even of sinful reactions of killing the entire world, not to speak of killing a demon like Vrtrasura. One who has killed a Brahmana, one who has killed a cow, or one who has killed his father or mother or spiritual master can be immediately freed. This is a Nama Prada, sorry. From all sinful reactions simply by chanting the holy name of Lord Narayana. Other sinful persons such as dog eaters and chandalas who are less than Shudras can also be freed in this way. But you are a devotee and we shall help you by performing the great horse sacrifice. If you please Lord Narayana in that way, why should you be afraid? You will be freed even if you kill the entire universe, including the Brahmanas, not to speak of killing a disturbing demon like Vrtrasura. So because this was premeditated, Namno he, yeah, Papa Nira, so the same thing. By once chanting the holy name of the Lord, one can be freed from the reactions of more sins that one can imagine. And one can even imagine performing. The holy name is so spiritually potent that simply by chanting the holy name, one can be freed from the reactions of all sinful activities. What then is to be said of those who chant the holy name regularly or worship the deity regularly? For such purified devotees, freedom from sinful reaction is certainly assured. This does not mean, however, that one should intentionally commit sinful acts and think himself free from the reactions because he's chanting the holy name. This is the offense namno baladhyasya hi papa buddhihi. The Lord's holy name certainly has the potency to neutralize all sinful activities. But if one repeatedly and intentionally commits sins while chanting the holy name, he is most condemned. These verses name the performers of various sinful deeds. Hmm. Manno Samhita, the following names are given. A son begotten by a Brahmana and born from the womb of a Shudra is called Parashava or Nishada, a hunter accustomed to stealing. A son begotten by a Nishada in the womb of a Shudra woman is called Pukkasa. Child begotten by a Kshatriya in the womb of the daughter of a Shudra is called Ugra. So, all such offspring are considered extremely sinful, but the holy name of the Supreme Lord is so strong that all of them can be purified simply by chanting. Hirata Hunandra, just now we were reading. Here, the sages encourage King Indra to kill Vrtrasura even at the risk of Brahma Hatya and the guarantee to release him from sinful reactions by performing an Ashwamedha Yagna. Such purposefully devised atonement, however, cannot relieve the performer of sinful acts. This will be seen from the following verse. Encouraged by the words of the sages, Indra killed Vrtrasura, and when he was killed, the sinful reaction for killing a Brahmana certainly took shelter of Indra. After killing Vrtrasura, Indra could not surpass the Brahmahatya. Formerly, he had killed one Brahmana out of circumstantial anger, but this time, following the advice of the sages, he killed another Brahmana purposefully, pre-planned. Therefore, the sinful reaction was greater than before. Indra could not be relieved from the reaction simply by performing sacrifices for atonement. He had to undergo a severe series of sinful reactions, and when he was freed by such suffering, the Brahmanas allowed him to perform the heart sacrifice. So here, because this was purposeful, he had to go through suffering. Previous one was not purposeful, so he got away by distributing those sinful reactions to other jivas. But because this was purposeful, he had to suffer the sinful reactions. Severe series of sinful reactions. When he was freed by such suffering, then he was allowed to do. Then he could do that heart sacrifice. The planned execution of sinful deeds on the strength of chanting the holy name of the Lord or undergoing prashchitta cannot give relief to anyone, even to Indra or Nahusha. Yeah. Yeah, so there was saw the woman of personified sin chasing him. So his sin came as a form of a woman. So she was a witch. So finally he went and entered Manasa Sarovara. So he lived there for 1000 years in the subtle fibers of the stem of a lotus. But he had no food because all the sacrifices, the results of sacrifices had to come Indraya Swaha, wherever that sacrifices are performed. But that could not reach him because fire god used to bring his share of all yagnas, but fire god would not enter water. So Indra was practically starving. Indra's sins were diminished by the influence of Rudra, the demigod of all directions. Because Indra was protected by the goddess of fortune, Lord Vishnu's wife, who resides in the lotus clusters of Manasa Sarovara lake, Indra's sins could not affect him. Indra was ultimately relieved of all reactions of his sinful deeds by strictly worshipping Lord Vishnu. Then he was called back to the heavenly planet. See, even this one. So he took shelter of Rudra, who's also a devotee. purport here. By the influence of Rudra, then is protected by goddess of fortune. Then he strictly worshipped Lord Vishnu. Yeah, the horse sacrifice performed by saintly Brahmanas relieved Indra of the reactions to all his sins because he worshipped the Supreme Person of Godhead in that sacrifice. Although it committed a gravely sinful act, it was nullified at once by that sacrifice. Yeah. In this very great narrative, there is glorification of the Supreme Lord Narayana. There are statements about the exaltedness of devotional service. There are descriptions of devotees like Indra and Vrtrasura, and there are statements about King Indra's release from sinful life and about his victory in fighting the demons. By understanding this incident, one is relieved of all sinful reactions. Wow, see. Therefore, the learned are always advised to read this narration. If one does so, one will become expert in the activities of the senses, meaning he will not use it for sense gratification. His opulence will increase because he's going to use it for Krishna, and his reputation will become widespread because he doesn't want reputation. One will also be relieved of all sinful reactions. He will conquer all his enemies, and the duration of life will increase. Because this narration is auspicious in all respects, learned scholars regularly hear and repeat it on every festival day. So, by understanding this incident, one is relieved of all sinful reactions. So, if you have understood this incident, then now we are mukta, Jivan mukta, done. So, who will get the result of this statement? What is the criteria to get the result of this statement? So it said one will get free from all sinful reactions. Who will get that benefit? What is the qualification to get that benefit?
Hare Krishna, bro.
Yeah.
So, I mean, based on the the whole pastime, the one who gives up the attachment to the body and then gives up everything for the sake of Krishna will get benefit.
Okay. Okay. Just I'm reading that statement again. By understanding this incident, one is relieved of all sinful reactions. Okay. So what else can it mean? Prabhupada has not written a purport to this. Anything else?
Jiva, Prabhu.
Huh?
Jiva.
Jiva? Okay, so important thing is we understand the incident. Of course, like Vinod Prabhu said, okay, we understand the exalted nature of devotion and how powerful devotion is, and goal of life, etc., etc. But the most important thing, whenever in Bhagavatam you hear any benedictions like this, Varaprasada, what is required is faith. Who will get rid of all sinful reactions? Who heard this incident, understood everything, and who have the faith now in that statement saying that we will get freed from sinful reactions. He will get freed. So this is the beauty of devotion. I keep saying this. It's about Shraddha. It's about faith. So if we have faith in the statements of Bhagavatam, then we will get the result. If you don't have faith, that is why Krishna in Bhagavad Gita also says, one who doesn't have faith, he will not find happiness in this world or the next. And yes, while there has to be intelligence, we have to think, we have to understand logically, philosophically, etc. But certain statements are just, truth, right? Which we have to just accept. And we may not understand how it will work, but it will work. If you have faith, it will work. Okay, so we'll close here. Are there any other